King Varian made his way down the hall to his chamber, offering nods to various people along the way. If only they knew just how erotic their leader was. If only they had any idea what the King of Stormwind had waiting for him. But they didn't need to know. All Varian could think about was making his way to his chambers and quick, yet not quick enough to arouse suspicion. Soon the king made it to the thick double doors outside his bedroom, two guards standing watch outside, both offering their glorious leader a salute. "That will be enough for tonight, men. Dismissed," said the king in his cordial yet gravelly voice. The guards were used to being sent away in the night hours and didn't mind, for it meant they could head to the Pig and Whistle for an early flagon or two. Once inside the chambers, King Varian laid his weapons down upon a rack, clapping his gauntleted hands and summoning two beautiful twin maidens, both with beautiful shoulder-length red hair, the most stunning emerald green eyes, and ivory pale skin, both naked from head to toe. I have been wearing this armor all day. Undress me." With that simple order, the young maids began the task of removing the heavy plate armor that that adorned their king, placing it piece by piece onto a nearby armor rack until Varian was stripped down to his pants and black filigreed shirt. Both maids bit at their bottom lip as they stepped back to take in the marvelous and seductive sight of their king. Oh, the things they wished they could do to him, but tonight the leader of Stormwind had something else in mind. Varian made his way to a large red curtain in the northwest corner of his chambers. Next to it was a long velvet rope that used to withdraw it, and as the beautiful red maidens clung to their master's side, the king gave that rope a pull. The sides of the large curtain withdrew to reveal a beautiful pale-skinned woman with long silvery hair that was bound to a wood cross that hung off the ground a few good feet. The human girl tied in such a fashion that her arms and legs were behind her and her legs spread wide, as a third twin maiden was devouring her nethers, lewdly sucking upon her dripping womanhood, as the bound woman moaned whorishly, her, her body a mess of sweat and noticeable marks, where the ropes had rubbed her pale skin. King Varian stepped towards the maid and smirked. "Have you all been pleasuring her all day, as ordered?" he asked. God. Asked the king to the maid between the pale woman's legs. The woman looked up to her master, nectar painting her lips, and smiled. "Yes, your majesty. Good. Leave us for now, ladies." The maids gave a pout and made their way to their king's bed to enjoy some incestuous lovemaking and self-pleasure. Meanwhile, the king had plans for the woman whose name was Vex, a monk who the king had just met just weeks before, and was now a person of great interest to the man. "Now then, Vex, I have some plans for you," said Varian as he made his way over to the cupboard, rubbing his fingers over the golden handle and pulling it open. Vex could only pant in reply. Her cunt had been eaten out so many times while the king was away, the monk forced to come over and over and over again. By this point, the girl's sex was red and swollen and oozing fluids upon the floor. The king could not help but admire the sight of the overstimulated monk. King Varian reached for a lash inside the cupboard he had just opened. He had quite a few sizes and shapes to choose from, though tonight he thought he would go for a medium lash. Big enough for the monk to feel it, but not big enough that it would break the skin. Vex knew what was about to happen, as this had been going on for quite a few nights before. The monk gave a shudder, and all she could do was wait in anticipation for that first strike. The tied, blindfolded Vex squeaked nervously as she awaited the lash to strike her. And she didn't have to wait long. The King of Stormwind sent the first of his lashings toward the side of the monk, hitting her ribs just below her right breast, another hitting her below her left thigh, another upon her right shoulder, and with each strike, the monk let out a lewd moan, the pain a great turn on for her. Varian would continue to strike Vex until the pale monk's skin was marked violet and crimson. The king then made his way closer, taking Vex's chin with his thumb and forefinger, leading the bound woman into a slow, sensual kiss. His tongue making his way inside the woman's hot, saliva-filled mouth, the monk thrusting her tongue forward to meet her king's own. Vex moaned against the king's mouth as the man allowed his large hand to cup an ample breast, massaging that pale, fleshy orb using his fingers to roughly tug and pull at the aroused center. his mouth abandoning hers as he began to lap at the sweat that covered each and every lash mark, from the monk's breasts to her shoulders, her hips, and her ribs. Vex moaned as she felt the king's hot breath upon her raw flesh, once satisfied with the taste of his plaything's salty perspiration. God. Varian reached up and pulled the chain, lowering the cross the monk was tied to until Vex was level with her leader's crotch. It was then that she heard the metal rattling of Varian's belt, and it was then that she could feel the excess saliva building up in her mouth, anticipating the taste of her king's mighty cock. Varian took down his pants and underwear, gripping his semi-hard dick in hand, stroking it as he held it in front of the monk's face. Vex could smell the musk of her king, and it caused her to become even more wanton. The monk licked her lips, gripping her head from behind. The king gripping her head from behind as he stroked himself. "Open your mouth, girl." "Open your mouth, girl," Varian commanded, and as she did, he slowly fed his member into the woman's warm, wet mouth, half the man's length now inside Vex's orifice. Slowly the king began to move his hips, using that hot, saliva-filled mouth for his own pleasure, grunting away as his member flexed against the tongue of his bound lover. Gotta take a drink, hold on.
Me too, man.
I'm dying.
Another 6 pages. Or no, 5. King Varian gave another hearty grunt, forcing his cock deeper into the woman's mouth, deep into her throat, the monk's neck bulging as the king's thick girth traveled further, all while Vex drooled and slobbered all over the king's mighty staff. And once Varian was fully hilted inside that tight tunnel, he started to really pump, violently throat-fucking that silver-haired wench, forcing the woman's hair down his shaft. The monk desperately trying not to gag on the man's massive shaft. She repeats the same word over and over again. "Yes, suck my royal cock, you slut. Praise your king," shouted Varian as he pumped in and out of that hot cock sleeve of a throat.
This is nuts.
Oh god, here we go, okay.
No, the nutting comes
How
later.
much more?
There's 4 pages left. 4.5, sorry. The king's mighty cock flexed and drooled within that monk's tight throat, Varian's offering a warrior's grunt with each rough thrust, tears moving down the woman's cheek, brought on simply by the deep throat fucking and not from sorrow. Vex loved her king, and, in his own way, he loved her as well, for these acts were not some kind of non-consensual acts of torture. No matter how rough they looked, these were lustful kinks that both had wished to explore with each other. And once the king had filled his lover's throat with his warrior's seed, he allowed the woman down, cutting the binds... Oh god, that held her...
I started listening.
That held her... No, you didn't. It was later on, I think.
Oh, okay. I just
Way
started
later on.
warrior's
2 pages.
seed.
No, 2 pages. Anyway, cutting her down from the smooth wooden cross, the beautiful silver-haired monk falling to her hands and knees, the king gazing down at his beloved plaything, her body shining with sweat, the full back tattoo, a white tiger on display. Varian had always loved it. To him, Vex's body was a work of art. "I'm so happy I have met you those 4 weeks ago, Vex. I had been so..." The king paused, helping the silver-haired monk to her feet, wrapping his strong arms around her and removing the blindfold, staring into the girl's eyes. "I had been so very lonely," the monk smiled as her eyes adjusted to the light once more. You always get emotional when you come, Varian," she offered a giggle, and the king smiled as he blushed only slightly, so in love with the sound of the young girl's laugh. Taking Varian's hand, Vex moved slowly to the king's bed, the beautiful maidens clearing off and moving somewhere out of the way to enjoy the show. Vex crawled into the sheets, the flexible monk placing both ankles behind her head, both of her hot little holes in display for the king. And with her index finger, she motioned her lover closer. "Fuck me, Varian, you've teased me for so long," she would shout. King Varian didn't need an invitation. He had already fully removed what little clothing he had left and was making his way onto the bed, cock in hand, now pressing it against that spongy crown. Now pressing that spongy crown against Vex's cunt slit. And with a mighty thrust, he hilted himself inside the soft, wet hole. Another grunt of pleasure leaving the king's throat. Vex herself let out a lewd moan, reaching up to wrap her arms around Varian's neck, pulling him closer to him, locking her lips with his, inviting his tongue inside her mouth, and as the king began his rhythmic thrusts, his large royal cock had already been pressing against the woman's cervix with each pump of his hips. Hold on, I gotta drink. Okay. The couple looked like quite the sight. The monk, ankles behind her head, her pale skin
User
covered in
joined your
sweat
channel.
and lash marks, strands of silver hair matted to her beautiful face, lips locked with the king on top of her. His light bronze skin shining with perspiration as well, his scarred back muscles even more defined with moisture. The king's hips moving rapidly as he pumped his large manhood in and out of that perfectly drenched cock sheath. The room was filled with the sound of lustful moans and grunts, Vex offering a high-pitched moan as her pussy was slammed into repeatedly. The king groaning as his cock had gently kissed the opening of the woman's cervix, and the maidens who watched were furiously rubbing their cunts and pinching their aroused nipples. Oh, how jealous they were of the beautiful monk. Hours passed as the two made love, and though Vex had come many times, Varian held out. At the moment, it was all about his love. The man so gently sucking upon the monk's neck, lapping the salty sweat from her flesh as she moaned and gasped for breath. The air around the two so hot it became difficult to take in oxygen. This is the best part. The lusty maidens had passed out moments ago and now laid in a pile, cuddling each other in an incestuous pile of their own fluids, for not even they could outlast the King of Stormwind.
Is that the end?
No, 2 pages.
Oh my god, good.
Vex let out another high-pitched crescendo of overheated moans as she was hit by another mind-breaking orgasm, throwing her head back as Varian thrust deep, moving his hips down as to the monk's large, beautiful breast, taking a nipple into his own and sucking roughly. He could feel his own end coming on, but in his mind he still wanted to last forever for his beloved plaything. But then the girl issued one more command. The girl issued her one command. Come for me, my darling king. Fill me with your warrior's seed. She would cue to him. Varian let out a slow gasp. He could not resist the pleading tone in which his lover was making her request. The king moved his lips to Vex's and kissed her deeply with all the passion he could muster. And soon his royal cock was exploding deep inside the woman's freshly fucked channel. It gets better. It gets better. It gets better. It gets better. Shh, it gets better. Okay, hold on. Inside the monk's freshly fucked channel, groaning and grunting like an animal as he filled the monk with his molten seed, rope after sticky rope, filling the woman's womb as the monk came into one final climax, the pair coming together as one. Oh, my king, yes, I am overflowing, the monk shouted, lust controlling her words.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Wow.
One page.
One
No,
more
page.
to go.
Where'd my pants go?
We're at the home stretch.
One page.
It's
Here we
hard
go.
to type one-handed.
Oh my
Jesus Christ, okay. Soon the room was silent, save for the sounds of panting, and then the sound of songbirds outside the king's window. God. Of course the birds are chirping after they fucked. Anyway, the pair had made love until the morning hours, and as the king's advisors knocked on his chamber doors, he knew it was time to dress himself and tend to his kingly duties all over again. Varian started to move out of the bed, but the young monk stopped him, offering the king a knowing glance that he could not resist. Advisors, he shouted the king, I am feeling ill this morning. Have my son tend to my duties for the day. And with a smirk on his face, King Varian and his exhausted lover continued to make love, all through the morning hours as well. And here's an OOC note from Lester right here. Lester would like to inform the reader that the proceeding was a work of fiction and blah blah blah, you can't sue me.
Oh
The
shit.
end.
Oh, that's that person that sells the erotic novels in Stormwind.
That's where
I swear to
my
God
go-to
you
box
could
from.
drown a
What is
toddler in my
novels?
panties right now.
Thank you so much.
End the recording.
I love that the fucking birds started chirping.
Birds are
I
chirping.
just like freshly fucked